Welcome to Euronews Tonight. Here are your latest headlines. President Macron's plans to make EU cooperation a central theme of France's presidency of the European Union when they take the reins in January. President Joe Biden says democracies across the world are facing sustained and alarming challenges as he opens his two-day virtual democracy summit.
The head of Instagram faces a grilling in the US Senate about how his platform exposes young users to harmful online content.
And in sport, Barcelona exit the Champions League's final for the first time in 17 years. We'll ask what's next for the Catalan Giants. Hello and welcome to the programme. President Emmanuel Macron says he wants to see a powerful Europe with its hands on the rails of its own future as he plans to make cooperation a central theme of France's presidency of the EU when it takes over in January. Macron focused on the issues of migration, defence, stability and peace within the bloc as he laid out France's priorities. It'll be France's 13th time holding this position since the 1950s.
I'd say we need to move on from being a Europe of interior cooperation over our borders to a Europe that is a powerhouse in the world, fully sovereign, free in its choices and the master of its destiny. And that's the objective we need to pursue.
Well, for more on this, let's cross over to our correspondent, Effie Kutsu-Costa in Brussels. Effie, President Macron has laid out several areas where he hopes to make headway: migration, defence and stability within the bloc. So how does he plan to tackle these?
Yes, Ru. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, just laid out his plans, and the journalist just said that these are not plans for the next 6 months, but for the next 10 years, as he actually, his priorities is about everything. He spoke, of course, at the beginning about the protection of the borders, of European borders, and he even suggested a body similar to Eurogroup for the review of Schengen, and of course for reviewing and updating the rules of Schengen, which is something very important for the bloc, especially now under the pressure that it gets from Belarus and from the weaponizing of migrants. Of course, his motto and the motto of the French presidency is recovery, power and belonging. And of course, when he speaks about power, he wants to push for the defense union. It's not a secret that Emmanuel Macron and France in general wants this defense union for years. And now he finds that it's the momentum in order to push and influence his colleagues in Europe to move forward and get more independent and sovereign as he described it. Of course, the resistance is there for everything, actually. And it's quite interesting to see how he will tackle these issues that are unresolved since years. And of course, he spoke about recovery. And there, he said something very interesting. He will hold a special summit in March to present his new growth model for Europe after the pandemic, and that he wants to focus more on quality work and, of course, on an EU-wide minimum wage. Of course, 2022 is the year that the EU member states will focus and debate how to really come back to the fiscal rules and how to reduce the increased debt that it was increased, of course, because of the pandemic. And of course, we know and it is expected that the old division between the South and the frugal North will be revived. And there, of course, it's a big and difficult task for Macron to get through it.
Well, another difficult task for Macron is going to be the tough presidential campaign that he will face at home when France takes the reins in the EU. Do you think the speculation is that he will be able to achieve his aims?
Actually, the French president has faced criticism both in the EU capitals and at home because he didn't postpone the EU presidency, which will coincide with the presidential elections in April. Of course, he didn't officially submit his candidacy, but it's very much expected that he will run for a president. And of course, what people and experts say that he wants to use. He is pro-European and he wants to use the presidency as a platform in order to campaign his ideas. It's quite tricky because the EU decision-making process is quite complicated. It needs unanimity, it needs consensus, and he may not have positive and enough results before April.
That was our correspondent Effie Kutsu-Costa in Brussels. The EU is outlining new plans to ensure gig economy workers get the minimum wage, sick pay, holidays and other employment rights. Until now, so-called platform workers have had to go to court to prove their employees all risks being denied their basic rights. But the bloc's proposals are not necessarily proving popular, as Christopher Pitchers reports.
To be employed or self-employed? That's the question Brussels answered on Thursday with its new plans for so-called platform workers. The European Commission's new proposals are the first step towards ensuring people who work as Uber drivers or Deliveroo riders enjoy the same labour rights as other traditional employees. As things stand, around 5.5 million gig workers, as they are also called, are considered self-employed by the platforms that give them their jobs. But that could soon change.
The average age is still quite low, in the 20s, but there are also now people a bit older doing this job as a principal job. And this is an argument for saying, well, if people are doing this job as their principal job, they really need this protection. Because if they have a family, if they have a problem, like an accident or sickness problem, they have to be protected.
Under the proposals, workers will be considered an employee if two criteria are met, including if the level of pay is fixed, if rules of appearance must be respected, like with uniforms, if performances are monitored via electronics, if there is no freedom to choose working hours, and if the possibility of working for others is restricted. For those who will be reclassified as a traditional employee, this will mean more social rights, like collective bargaining, health insurance and unemployment benefits, as well as pension contributions. Unions, however, say the battle has been won, but not the war.
We are clearly welcoming the directive that is on the table, on strong basis, good tools on the table, and possibility for strong delivery. But of course, we have to look at to make sure that the presumption applies to all the platforms, to make sure that from one day to another they do not just change their general condition.
Platform companies are already complaining. According to Delivery Platforms Europe, the EU-wide proposal could mean up to 250,000 people stop platform work as they would no longer have the flexibility they seek. Christopher Pitchers, Euronews, Brussels.
Cases of the Omicron variant have doubled in 24 hours in the United Kingdom. Another 249 people tested positive, bringing the total to 817 cases of the new strain. On Wednesday, the government said the rate of new Omicron cases was doubling every 2 to 3 days. England has now announced new measures such as extended face mask wearing, working from home and using COVID-19 health passes to enter some venues. Austria has outlined plans to make COVID-19 vaccinations mandatory for all residents over the age of 14. It's widely believed these proposals will be approved by Parliament, making the country the first in the EU to make jabs obligatory. The plan is scheduled to come into force in February. Anyone found to be in breach of the rules could be fined more than €3,500. President Biden says democracy faces sustained and alarming challenges as he kicked off his Summit for Democracy. The two-day virtual event aims to promote democracy against rising autocracies. More than 100 participants, including governments, civil society and private sector leaders, are attending. But China and Russia have been left out, as well as Hungary, the only EU member state not invited. The president said democracy needs more champions.
By outside pressure from autocrats, they seek to advance their own power, export and expand their influence around the world, and justify the repressive policies and practices as a more efficient way to address today's challenges. That's how it's sold. By voices that seek to fan the flames of social division and political polarization. And perhaps most importantly, and most worrying of all, by increasing the dissatisfaction of people all around the world with democratic governments that they feel are failing to deliver for their needs.
Well, for more on this, let's go to our reporter Ray Suarez in Washington, D.C. Ray, before the summit started, it faced criticism from Hungary for not getting an invite, and Russia and China as well, who called it a product of Cold War thinking. What's President Biden hoping to achieve with this?
Well, he certainly sent a signal to Hungary, and Viktor Orban took that snub and tried to prevent Ursula von der Leyen from having a speaking role, from even cooperating with, attending with the summit. She is fully participant in it. That effort did not succeed. Russia is right now in a battle of wills with the United States over whether the world will countenance another encroachment on Ukrainian sovereignty, while the Chinese have been openly contemptuous of a summit on democracy. A senior official was mocking it in recent days, pointing to American difficulties in handling the coronavirus pandemic as proof that democracy may have big problems. But for Joe Biden, this is something that is not only one that helps protect already existing democracies, but helps encourage ones that are in formation. So he's trying to punish bad behavior, it seems, from the invitation list and encourage good behavior. You know, only one country in the world was rated as being freer and more democratic in 2021 than it was last year in 2020, and that's Mongolia, while 13 countries have been rated as backsliding during that time. And that's why Joe Biden says he wants the world's existing democracies to lock arms. Rue?
The US itself has seen its own democracy come under fire, with former President Trump calling foul over the election, followed by the attack on Capitol Hill. Should Biden be focused on domestic issues rather than international?
It was clear from his announcement of the summit and what he said to open up the meeting that he sees this as both a domestic and an international issue. But the State Department and other U.S. officials are very aware of skepticism about the health of U.S. democracy. And in a briefing to reporters, a senior State Department official said that no democracy is perfect, ours included, and added that the United States is coming to this summit from a posture of modesty. You know, an international organization called the Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance put the United States on a list of backsliders, saying over the last decade, not only India and Brazil, but the United States as well started to backslide in its observance of democratic norms. So, yes, the world is aware. There's been a lot of criticism of who's on the invite list. There's been a lot of criticism of the United States, basically saying, put your own house in order. But Joe Biden forthrightly says there's too much going on that's too bad in too many places in the world for the United States to stay silent, or as the American president said, the data we're seeing is largely pointing in the wrong direction. Rue?
Thanks, Ray. The head of the popular social network, Instagram, has been grilled by US senators over new measures to protect young users online. Matthew Holroyd, in our social media news desk, theCUBE, was following proceedings.
Big tech back in the spotlight, and this time into the turn of Instagram, the photo-sharing platform owned by Meta, the same parent company as Facebook. Leaked internal documents recently published by the Wall Street Journal have cast a long shadow about how Instagram can harm young online users, especially young girls. These internal documents, alongside numerous external studies, have found that Instagram has exposed teenagers online to content related to eating disorders and even suicide, leading them to develop mental health and body shape issues. Instagram was also lambasted for suggesting it developed a specific version of its app aimed at children, while whistleblower Frances Haugen has previously said that platforms owned by Meta have been putting profit before people's online safety. Now, as you can imagine, all of this has angered prominent lawmakers in the United States. And on Wednesday, the CEO of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, was summoned before a US Senate panel to answer their questions. In front of the fierce gaze of both Democrats and Republicans, he defended his company's conduct and also rejected the allegations.
I don't believe the research suggests that our products are addictive. Research actually shows that on 11 of 12 difficult issues that teens face, teens are struggling, said Instagram helps more than harms. Now, we always care about how people feel about their experiences on our platform, and it's my responsibility as the head of Instagram to do everything I can to help keep people safe, and we're going to continue to do so.
It was on Tuesday that Instagram announced a new tool that it was developing, encouraging users to take a break from its platforms. This is available currently to European users in the UK and Ireland. And Instagram said it was also looking at further parental control tools to come out early next year. But these new safety measures were met with skepticism by the US Senate. The head of that subcommittee, Richard Blumenthal, denounced Adam Mosseri's statements, saying this was merely a, quote, public relations tactic. The issue of transparency is once again at the forefront here. Instagram, like other big tech platforms, being encouraged by lawmakers and advocacy groups alike to be more open about its internal research and exactly how its algorithms work. These things which form part of the big tech platform's business models. And Richard Blumenthal, the head of that US Senate subcommittee, said on Twitter that the time for big tech self-regulation is now over, promising that the United States is ready to bring in legislation to keep these big tech companies in line.
Former footballing giants Barcelona are out of the Champions League for the first time in 17 years. The five-time champions suffered a crushing defeat to Bayern Munich on Wednesday night. Let's cross over to our sports reporter Michael Kern, who's in London for us. Michael, first time in 17 years that Barcelona don't make it through to the final 16 of the Champions League. Another blow in what's been a tough few seasons, wouldn't you say?
No, massively. Of course, it was 2003, 2004, the last time we did see Barcelona at this stage. And that was the year that they failed to qualify for the competition altogether. A fate that could be sealed again this year, currently 7th in the Liga. Xavi so far failing to stop the rot after the departure of Ronald Koeman. But massive disappointment for them last night. 3-0 defeat against Bayern Munich, 2-0 down at half-time as well. They had a chance to go one up, but when it was all level, but only 2 shots in target in the entire match. So there's lots of things for Xavi to try and fix there. They, of course, aren't out of European football altogether after losing this one. They, of course, will get the chance to play in the Europa League, but there's some tough teams in there. So there's obviously going to be expectation from the fans to bring home a European trophy from the Europa League, but that's an incredibly tough competition to win as well. But I think the focus now well and truly has to be, from Xavi's perspective, is on the league season, trying to salvage something from that. But of course, it's not going to be easy with the financial implications on the club, or is he losing, of course, Messi in the summer? It's a big challenge that he's got on his hands, and I think that was highlighted even more last night.
The draw for the knockout stages takes place on Monday. Could there be some great games ahead?
There certainly will be. Of course, the teams that finish top of their groups in the Champions League are going to be seeded. So you've got the likes of Liverpool, Manchester City, Man United, Bayern Munich, and 13-time winners Real Madrid. They're all seeded. They go up against the unseeded ties, and Atletico Madrid, Inter Milan, PSG, Sporting Lisbon, Chelsea, Villarreal, Benfica are all in that unseeded pot as well. So we could see some fantastic matchups there. I think early doors, the one that people are hoping they're going to see would maybe be, of course, that rekindling of that relationship against Messi and Ronaldo if Manchester United, of course, were to draw against PSG. So there's some great games and great matches up going to be in that one. And of course, that draw will take place early next week, which I think lots of eyes will be on, and there could be some epic encounters in the next round.
Now, the Omicron outbreak is causing some havoc in the Europa League, with Tottenham Hotspur's game being cancelled. Could this affect other games in domestic leagues and tournaments?
Well, I think we've seen over the last year and 18 months, haven't we, that when the initial COVID outbreak happened and then football resumed, the clubs did a fantastic job of controlling outbreaks and the bubbles around their sides. Of course, as regulations have eased, we've seen with Tottenham, of course, there's been cases within that club, which has meant that that game has been postponed. I think as a precaution now, the bubbles, I think, have still been incredibly closely watched and been stringently looked at. But I think that will tighten up even more to prevent this from happening. Obviously, in the United Kingdom, announcements in the last couple of days that you may need a passport to get into sporting fixtures now to say you've been vaccinated and you're kind of clear of COVID. So I think they're going to ramp up precautions once again, I think, to stop any more impact on those matches. Because, of course, if games start getting delayed, that will cause ramifications later on the season as well.
That was our sports reporter, Michael Kern, in London. The Italian filmmaker Lina Wertmuller has died. In a career spanning decades, she was perhaps best known internationally for directing overtly political films. Richard Cady reports.
The first woman to receive a nomination for Best Director at the Academy Awards died in Rome, aged 93. She was nominated for an Academy Award for Pascalino in 1977. Euronews met her in Rome when she received a Lifetime Achievement Oscar in 2019.
How would you encourage a woman, or how would you advise a woman to work within what is still a very male-dominated film industry?
It depends. Take a great actress, for example. She has a power, a particular power which is often many times greater than that of men. It's not about sex, it's about one's power in the work.
Born in Rome to a devoutly Catholic family of Swiss descent, she was a strong woman who always spoke freely and never sought mainstream success.
One of the very divisive political issues is the migration crisis and the way that politicians have dealt with it. How would you explore that through film?
All these themes are part of our story, my story. So I would handle it from time to time as I saw fit. When I fall in love with a story, I follow it. It guides me. There's nothing prefabricated about it. No.
Wertmuller's first job in film was assisting Federico Fellini in his classic film 8½, but she always had ambitions to make a career as a pioneering filmmaker in her own right.
We leave you with a no comment from Rome, where a 23-metre Christmas tree is dazzling spectators with 300,000 lights. Thanks for watching Euronews Tonight.